Good day viewers, welcome to another edition of the Daily Strange Stories. I'm John Brown. Happy Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, I hope you're feeling accomplished and motivated. Our lead story for today. The Big Five boss, too corrupt former minister and South African ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa, commits suicide after being exposed by General Mkhwanazi and General Khumalo. His wife and police investigators speak out. In the heart of Paris, the capital city of France, located some 12,400 kilometers away from South Africa's Pretoria, on the morning of the 30th of September 2025, luxury and tragedy collided. Beneath the glittering glass facade of the Hyatt Regency, one of the French capital's tallest landmarks, the lifeless body of a powerful man was discovered. He was no ordinary guest. He was Nkosi Emmanuel Mthethwa, known to many South Africans simply as Nathi Mthethwa. Once a towering figure in South Africa's ruling party, the ANC. Once the man trusted with the highest offices of the state, safety and security, police, arts, sport, and finally diplomacy. At 58 years old, he wore suits that carried the weight of decades in power. And yet, on that Tuesday, he was found at the foot of a building, a victim of a fatal fall that would shock the nation. This is the story of how a life of political triumphs, corruption scandals, and betrayals ended in a hotel courtyard in Paris, a story that now raises haunting questions about loyalty, guilt, and the crushing pressure of power. Mthethwa checked into the Hyatt Regency Paris Étoile quietly. It was Monday afternoon. The city was alive, buzzing with its usual rhythm. Tourists were flooding cafes, cars were honking along the peripherique, and business travelers were lugging suitcases through revolving doors. No one knew that he would not leave alive. He booked a room on the 22nd floor, a privileged view across western Paris, the city stretching out under a crystal blue sky. But above that normal exterior, something heavy was pressing on him. Later, prosecutors would reveal that the secure hotel windows in his room had been forced open. Scissors, a crude tool of desperation, were left near the sill. That night, his wife, Philisiwe Buthelezi, received a message. It was short. It was troubling. He apologized. He spoke of ending his own life. Alarmed, she contacted authorities. A search began near the Bois de Boulogne, the sprawling woods of Paris, where his phone had last pinged. But it was already too late. By the next morning, Tuesday the 30th of September, a hotel security guard would find him dead in the interior courtyard. Officials ruled out foul play. Initial findings leaned towards suicide. And just like that, a man who had stood at the front lines of South African politics for 4 decades was gone. Born in the rural heartlands of KwaZulu-Natal in 1966, Nathi Mthethwa's early life was forged in the fires of resistance against apartheid's oppressive regime. At just 15 years old, he stepped into the fray as chairperson of his local youth organization in Clarwater, a small township where the air was thick with the scent of defiance and the ever-present threat of state violence. The 1980s were a time of upheaval in South Africa. The ANC, banned and operating underground, recruited young firebrands like Mthethwa into its clandestine networks. By 1988, he was deeply involved in subversive activities, coordinating efforts that challenged the white minority government's iron-fisted rule. His commitment led to his arrest during the state of emergency, a period when thousands were detained without trial, tortured, or simply disappeared. These experiences hardened Mthethwa, instilling in him a revolutionary zeal that would propel him through the ranks of the ANC as South Africa transitioned toward democracy in the early 1990s. The fall of apartheid in 1994 marked a new dawn, and Mthethwa rode the wave of liberation into positions of influence. From 1990 to 1992, he served as regional secretary of the ANC Youth League, a breeding ground for future leaders. His charisma and organizational skills caught the eye of party elders, and by the early 2000s, he was climbing the ladder, serving in various capacities that honed his political acumen. In 2008, under interim President Galema Motlanthe, Mthethwa was appointed Minister of Safety and Security, a role that evolved into Minister of Police during Jacob Zuma's presidency. This was no small feat. Policing in post-apartheid South Africa was a minefield, riddled with the legacies of racial division, rampant crime, and the need to rebuild trust in institutions once used as tools of oppression. Mthethwa, with his background in the struggle, seemed the ideal figure to bridge the gap between the ANC's revolutionary ethos and the demands of governance. Yet, beneath the veneer of public service, shadows began to gather. Mthethwa's tenure as police minister from 2009 to 2014 was marred by controversies that would later haunt him. The most infamous was the Marikana massacre in 2012, where police under his oversight opened fire on striking mine workers at the Lonmin Platinum Mine, where President Ramaphosa was a director, killing 34 and injuring dozens more. The incident, captured in harrowing footage that shocked the world, evoked memories of Sharpeville and Soweto, raising questions about whether the new South Africa had truly escaped the brutality of its past. Mthethwa defended the police actions, claiming they were in self-defense, but critics argued it exposed a deeper rot, a police force still prone to excessive force, influenced by political pressures and corporate interests. This event alone stained his legacy, but it was merely the tip of an iceberg of allegations that would surface years later, revealing a web of corruption intertwined with state capture, a term that would become synonymous with the Zuma era. State capture, as detailed in various commissions of inquiry, referred to the systematic looting of public resources by a network of politicians, business tycoons, and officials loyal to former President Jacob Zuma. Mthethwa's name emerged repeatedly in these probes, painting a picture of a man who allegedly abused his power for personal gain and to protect allies. The Zondo Commission, established in 2018 to investigate state capture, heard damning testimony about Mthethwa's involvement with Richard Mdluli, the former head of the South African Police Services (SAPS) Crime Intelligence Division. Mdluli, a controversial figure accused of treating the division's secret slush fund like a personal piggy bank, was said to have lavished gifts on Mthethwa, including a 195,581 boundary wall around his private residence in Gwambonambi, in KwaZulu-Natal, funded illicitly from intelligence coffers. Witnesses, including Colonel Tanachaya Naidoo, who was in witness protection, recounted how Mdluli instructed the purchase of a 400,000 rand Mercedes from Mthethwa, which Naidoo personally delivered to Pretoria. When journalists began sniffing around, Mthethwa reportedly panicked, claiming journalists are following me, prompting the vehicle's retrieval. These revelations were not isolated. The Mokoro Commission in 2019 further exposed Mthethwa's alleged interference in investigations. Major General Johan Bussen, a former Hawks commander, provided a 500-page affidavit detailing how Mthethwa pressured officials to reinstate Mdluli despite serious allegations against him. Bussen, who was investigating Zuma family connections like businessman Doshan Pandari, currently facing fraud and tax evasion charges, claimed Mthethwa's actions were part of a broader effort to shield corrupt networks. Emails and notes from prosecutors revealed meetings where Mthethwa allegedly demanded action against Bussen, labeling him a suspect even as Bussen assisted in anti-corruption probes. This ministerial overreach, as Bussen described it, violated the separation of powers, turning the police and National Prosecuting Authority (NPA) into tools for political vendettas. Mthethwa's career trajectory took him from police oversight to the Ministry of Arts, Sports, and Culture in 2014, a position he held until 2023. Here, too, scandal followed. His proposal for a 22 million rand national flag project drew widespread ridicule and accusations of wasteful expenditure, symbolizing the extravagance that plagued the ANC under Zuma. Critics saw it as emblematic of a government disconnected from the poverty and inequality still afflicting millions. Despite these controversies, Mthethwa's loyalty to the ANC secured him a plum diplomatic posting in December 2023, ambassador to France, permanent delegate to UNESCO, and ambassador to Monaco. Paris, with its grand boulevards and cultural prestige, seemed a fitting exile for a veteran politician. He was tasked with strengthening bilateral ties, fostering partnerships in education, culture, and trade, roles that placed him at the heart of international diplomacy, representing South Africa's aspirations on the global stage. But the past has a way of catching up, and for Mthethwa, it arrived in the form of the Madlanga Commission, a fresh inquiry into police corruption and misconduct. On September 19, 2024, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi took the stand, delivering testimony that would prove explosive. Mkhwanazi accused Mthethwa, during his time as police minister, of pressuring him to reinstate Mdluli, allowing the disgraced intelligence chief to continue plundering funds. Mkhwanazi described how Mdluli treated the crime intelligence slush fund as a personal ATM, funding lavish lifestyles, including trips and luxuries, with Mthethwa allegedly complicit or benefiting.
I'm talking about experience I had, was that Mkhwebi had written a first letter and referred to the Inspector General. Inspector General responded back and said, this is not my terrain. And Mkhwebi write another letter and say, my final decision. And that was the end of that case. But coming back now to the stopping of a disciplinary part, because although they are saying this in court, but disciplinary is within my control, I'm not going to stop it, not unless they write to me and they say I must stop. Inspector General, remember I said, commissioners, is the one who have an oversight role within the 6-rand fund account. So what she says to me in black and white, I must believe it, because she's the one who's responsible for monitoring the abuse of this fund and whether it is used according to the rules set out within the intelligence space. So before I left with her to the house, I told the minister that I'm done acting. If you think me being the acting national commissioner, I must now bow down to the wrong illegal instructions that you're giving me. His words was, I didn't appoint you, it's the president that appointed you. So I told the president, I'll go and meet with him, but I'm done acting. So I went to the Inspector General's office, and I don't know whether it's my ancestors or whatever that helped me, because the letter that she had written me first, that cleared Mdluli and said I must charge the CFO, which she later withdrew, she did not destroy the letter. She archived that letter. And she issued me another letter which contradicts that one. Remember, the first letter said Mdluli is clean. Now that she's giving me another letter that talks about the case, she's saying, no, Mdluli is not clean. He must go to court. So those two letters are contradicting each other. But instead of destroying the first letter, she didn't. She archived it, and she withdrew that from the archive. She gave it to me. So I took that and I walked, contacted the president, and I told the president, I'm done acting. Then the president said, no, I'm going to get someone. And I went to meet management. I told all the generals, I said, prepare your exit, because whoever is going to come is going to deal with you harshly. And indeed, that's what happened, commissioners. The General Pierre was appointed, and I was made to go and sit at home in Montana for the whole year, which was fine.
This echoed earlier commissions but added new layers, implicating Mthethwa in a Big Five cartel allegedly involved in contract killings, drug trafficking, hijackings, and fraud. As one of 3 KwaZulu-Natal-born police ministers accused of interference, Mthethwa's name was now linked to a region notorious for political assassinations and organized crime. At the heart of General Dumisani Khumalo's revelations was the existence of a cartel known as the Big Five. Its shadows stretched deeply across Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Durban, touching ports, tenders, private security firms, and ultimately, the streets where ordinary South Africans walk. Their main commodity is cocaine, trafficked nationally and internationally. But the cartel does not stop there. It has its fingers in hijackings, kidnappings, contract killings, extortion rackets, and tender fraud. Its camouflage is legitimate business, security companies, logistics firms, construction contracts, allowing it to coexist in daylight even as its operators direct assassinations at night. What Khumalo revealed tied together years of unexplained assassinations, mysterious disbandments of police task teams, and the silent creep of cartels into politics and policing. His words painted the portrait of what he described as the Big Five, a ruthless cartel headquartered in Gauteng, trading in drugs, contract killings, cross-border hijackings, tender fraud, and extortion. 2 of the names he revealed, Ketiso Molefe and Vusimuzi Matlala, already known to police as controversial businessmen and prime suspects in gangland murders, were now named in the heart of this shadow empire. While General Khumalo named Molefe and Matlala as the junior members of the Big Five cartel, he was too scared to name the 2 bosses above Matlala and Molefe. However, just the mere mention of the organogram of the Big Five cartel live on television during the Madlanga Commission was more than enough for Nathi Mthethwa to book a hotel room that is 22 floors above the ground and use it to meet his ancestors.
In short, under the cartel structure, subparagraph 1 is summing up the status level and the standard of organized crime cartels in our country. As we are all aware that organized crime is a growing and significant threat to the national security of the country and also the prosperity of our economic prosperity as a country. So the crime syndicates, which are below the level of cartels, are increasing their network that then will be based at local level up to the international stage. Amongst these cartels, which are made up of different syndicates, there is one identified in the country known as Big Five, which have since been identified as being very sophisticated, and it has got widespread influence, and it's involved in a broad spectrum of their illicit activities. The structure and the leadership of the particular cartel that will dominate my current testimony is believed to be having its head office in Gauteng for obvious reasons. Gauteng is the economic powerhouse of the country, and then with syndicates and groupings, or the capability of the same cartel to operate throughout the country. That is the currently identified structure and leadership of the cartel. The currently identified cartel, known as Big Five, is having a structure as reflected, with the main commodity being drugs, and then there are other illicit activities. This is an ongoing project investigation from the identification of the Big Five, the progress made. Those that are mentioned, reflected there in their boxes or positions, they've already been addressed, being a Mr. Katiso Mulifi, as well as a Mr. Muzi Matlala, and then the other three are still being addressed.
So the reason for the skulls is because you can't name those individuals at this point?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Well, not in public.
That is correct, Commissioners.
The implications were devastating. As ambassador to France and UNESCO delegate, Mthethwa was South Africa's face to the world, a symbol of democratic progress. But corruption allegations eroded that facade. Diplomatically, it risked straining relations with France, a key partner in trade, culture, and security. UNESCO, with its focus on ethics and heritage, could ill afford a representative tainted by scandal. Domestically, the Madlanga Commission's revelations threatened to drag Mthethwa back into the spotlight, potentially leading to his recall, legal charges, or public humiliation. He was reportedly on a list of witnesses for the Nkabinde inquiry into suspended Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions Andrew Chauge, another figure accused of shielding Zuma allies. The dominoes were falling, arrests of tenderpreneurs like Vusimuzi Matlala and Gatiso Molefe, who are also members of the Big Five cartel, and probes into Tembisa hospital thefts signaled a crackdown on state capture remnants. For Mthethwa, a man who had sworn allegiance to the Zuma faction, the pressure mounted. His diplomatic immunity offered little shield against the moral and psychological toll. The fear of disgrace, loss of status, and perhaps imprisonment could have overwhelmed him. This brings us to the fateful days in Paris, where the city's romantic allure masked a personal apocalypse. On September 28, 2024, Mthethwa made one of his last public appearances at the 109th anniversary commemoration of the Battle of Delville Wood in Longueville, France. There, amid the solemn graves of South African soldiers who fought in World War I, he laid a wreath, a poignant symbol of national sacrifice. Little did observers know this was a prelude to tragedy. The following Monday, September 29, Mthethwa checked into the Hyatt Regency Paris Étoile, a towering 137-meter edifice in the 17th arrondissement, overlooking the Port Maillot. He had booked a room on the 22nd floor about 10 days prior, a detail that speaks volumes about premeditation. These high-floor rooms, with views of the Eiffel Tower and rates up to $900 a night, are designed for luxury, not despair. Yet, Mthethwa chose this height deliberately, ensuring that any fall would be fatal, windows secured to open only 10 centimeters, requiring force to breach, as evidenced by the scissors left at the scene. His wife, Philisiwe Buthelezi, last saw him shortly before 4:30 p.m. that day, as he headed to a cocktail event. Around 9:30 p.m., she received a text message that chilled her to the core, an apology laced with intent to end his life. Alarmed, she reported him missing to French authorities. His phone's last signal pinged at 3 p.m. near the Bois de Boulogne, a vast park in the 16th arrondissement, just kilometers from the hotel. Police, fearing suicide, deployed a dog squad to search the woods, but found nothing. The next morning, on September 30th, at around 11:10 a.m., a hotel security guard discovered Mthethwa's body in the inner courtyard, lifeless after a 22-story plunge. The Paris prosecutor's office, led by Laure Bekuau, opened an inquiry, noting no signs of struggle, medication, or narcotics. The forced window and absence of third-party involvement pointed to a deliberate act. Philisiwe Buthelezi's voice emerges as a haunting thread in this narrative. In statements relayed through authorities, she described the worrying message that prompted her alert, a final, desperate communication from a husband unraveling under scandal's weight. While direct quotes from her are sparse, her actions speak of profound grief and confusion. As the wife of a public figure, she now navigates the fallout, standing beside their extended family amid national condolences. President Cyril Ramaphosa expressed deep sadness, calling it a moment of deep grief where government and citizens rally around the Mthethwa family. International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola echoed this, deeming it a national loss felt in diplomatic circles. The ANC's Madlanga Commission praised Mthethwa as a committed cadre of the liberation struggle, yet the tributes ring hollow against the backdrop of corruption. The hotel itself became a stage for this drama's quiet aftermath. The Hyatt Regency, with its revolving doors ushering in suited guests and valets attending luxury vehicles, showed no outward signs of turmoil. Staff, instructed to silence, offered little, a waitress whispered of scant information, a security manager cited crisis mode. Guests like American visitor Kevin Fowle noted a brief police presence but an otherwise normal atmosphere. A fellow 22nd floor occupant, anonymous, demonstrated the secure windows, screwed shut for safety, marveling at how anyone could force them open. Peering out, the vertigo-inducing drop underscored the finality. A fall from such heights leaves no room for survival, a calculated choice by a man determined to escape his demons. Psychologically, Mthethwa's decision reflects the crushing burden of exposure. Implicated in multiple commissions, he faced not just legal repercussions but the erosion of his revolutionary legacy. As ambassador, the scandals jeopardized South Africa's image abroad. UNESCO's ethical standards clashed with allegations of slush fund looting and interference. The Madlanga Commission's timing, with Mkhwanazi's testimony fresh, likely intensified his isolation in Paris, far from home's support networks. KwaZulu-Natal's violent political landscape, where rivals are eliminated, might have fueled paranoia. Booking the 22nd floor ensured lethality, scissors to breach the safety mechanism, no chance of reconsideration. French media, like Le Parisien and Paris Match, reported it as suicide, aligning with the prosecutor's preliminary findings. This tragedy resonates beyond one man, illuminating South Africa's ongoing battle with corruption. The Zuma years saw institutions like SAPS and NPA captured, protecting elites while ordinary citizens suffered. Mthethwa's alleged ties to Mdluli, Chiba, and Chauge exemplify this. Prosecutors pressured, investigations obstructed, all to shield the powerful. Busan's affidavits detail a conspiracy where Mthethwa met with NPA officials, demanding prosecutions against anti-corruption crusaders. Emails from Choge to subordinates, urging action with the minister, reveal the depth of collusion. Even after Zuma's ousting, these networks persisted, but commissions like Madlanga are lancing the boil, leading to arrests and inquiries. Mthethwa's death also highlights the human cost of political life in South Africa. ANC veterans, once heroes of the struggle, now face scrutiny for betraying ideals. His suicide, if confirmed, joins a grim list of figures who chose self-destruction over accountability, echoing global tales of fallen leaders. For Philisiwe Buthelezi, speaking out through her actions and the family's grief, it underscores the personal toll, a wife left to mourn, piecing together a life interrupted by scandal. As investigations continue in France, with South African authorities deferring to them, questions linger. Was this purely despair, or did unseen pressures play a role? The ANC mourns a distinguished servant, citing his World Cup board service and party contributions, but the corruption shadow looms large. The African National Congress, founded in 1912, evolved from a moderate advocacy group to a revolutionary force under leaders like Nelson Mandela and Oliver Tambo. Mthethwa's involvement in the underground from 1988 to 1989 placed him in the thick of Umkhonto weSizwe operations, the ANC's armed wing. His arrest during the state of emergency, declared by P.W. Botha in 1985, was part of a crackdown that detained over 25,000 people. Released in the early 1990s amid negotiations, Mthethwa transitioned seamlessly into democratic politics, embodying the struggle credentials that propelled many to power. General Mkhwanazi's exposure was pivotal. As KZN Commissioner, he navigated a province where over 200 political killings occurred since 2016. His testimony detailed Mthethwa's interference in Mdluli's case, who faced charges for murder, fraud, and abuse. Mdluli's slush fund, meant for covert operations, funded personal excesses, trips to Singapore, luxury cars, and even family weddings. Mthethwa's wall and Mercedes were drops in this ocean, but symbolic of patronage. Philisiwe Buthelezi, from a prominent Zulu family, represents the personal side. Her reporting of the missing person and the suicidal message humanizes the story. In South African culture, suicide carries stigma, yet her courage in alerting authorities speaks to love amid crisis. The Paris scene evokes cinematic tragedy, the Bois de Boulogne, once a royal hunting ground, now a site of Mthethwa's last trace. Nathi Mthethwa's life arcs from youthful rebel to corrupted statesman, ending in a Paris courtyard. His story compels reflection on South Africa's path. Will commissions like Madlanga heal the wounds, or deepen divisions? So, what are your last words to this fallen hero, former Minister Nathi Mthethwa? Thanks for watching this news bulletin. Please share your opinion in the comments section. We would be glad to read and respond to your comments. Let's meet again tomorrow in our next strange story. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday.